everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Olivia Ballhagen from the University of Northern Iowa. As we have people joining in, I actually have a poll for everyone to participate in. So I am dropping that in the chat. If you wouldn't mind filling that out so we can kind of gauge our audience today. I'm going to share my screen too so that you can see the results. So if you haven't used Poll Everywhere before, you'll just click on that link in the chat and then you'll complete the poll. So we just want to see, since our presentation today, we'll be talking about early partnerships and working at a four-year institution, how we can continue to work with community colleges. So just trying to gauge who our audience is today. Awesome. So we have a lot of representation today from four-year institutions. So we are lucky to have you join in. And then our community college partners, thanks for joining in so that we could talk more about these partnerships. And then other, I don't know who selected other, but if you want to drop, if you selected other, what you are coming from today, we'd love to hear that. So. All right. Thanks for participating in that. Okay. Sorry, so many different screens with Zoom, right? You think after a few years I'd have this nailed down. All right. So like I mentioned, my name is Olivia Ballhagen. I am from the University of Northern Iowa, and I will be talking today about early partnerships for transfer success. I work in admissions as a transfer coordinator, so that's kind of my background of where I'm coming from. I also was a transfer student myself, so shout out to all the transfers who are also joining today. Danielle?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm the Assistant Director of Transfer Admissions. So my job primarily is overseeing the transfer recruitment and the initiatives that we have not only to recruit students, but also to help them get connected when they're on campus. Olivia and I both advise the transfer student organization on campus, TAG, Transfer Advocacy and Involvement Group. And that group is very near and dear to our hearts because we love to see students transition to UNI and are successful, but gosh, it's hard to see them graduate. We had two of our execs graduate in December. So yeah, that's just a little bit about what we do. Kyle.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kyle Hyman. I'm an academic advisor in the College of Education here at the University of Northern Iowa. I also happen to be a transfer student way back in the day when I went to school like 2 years ago, or maybe a little longer ago than that. And I also have the fortune of having previously worked at a community college in Iowa. So I've seen the partnerships aspect from both this side, being currently at UNI, previously also when I worked at a community college. And then, one small thing is I'm really excited to talk to some folks from Illinois. My in-laws live in Illinois. So every time I have students or visitors or something from Illinois, I get really excited to talk to them. And then they ask me a whole bunch of questions and I realize my knowledge is completely limited to the visits I've had there. But I am very excited to talk with all of you this morning, and we really appreciate you having us.
Awesome. So thank you again. Really why we wanted to join with this session and share our experience with building early partnerships with community colleges. So with building these partnerships with community colleges, it really, I remember when I was a transfer student in my transfer process, my community college advisor was my go-to, and they continue to always tell me to start checking out the transfer process. And then, I kind of delayed, and for a while I wasn't working on it. And then I had somebody from UNI, actually Danielle, was at my community college and kind of shared with me about the transfer process as well. So I think that sometimes for students, hearing about the transfer process from several different outlets really helps to make it stick, that this is something to start working on early on during that transfer process so that they don't miss out on any details. So that's why we think it's really important to do the early outreach to start making those connections early on in the process. So like we mentioned, we are from the University of Northern Iowa. A little bit about UNI's size. So we are a mid-sized school. We're about a little less than 10,000 students on our campus, and something very unique to UNI, a third of our incoming students each year are transfer students. So transfer students are really our passion and who we are as an institution, since we have a large community of transfer students. A majority of our transfer students do come from community colleges, but we do have several that also come from other four-year institutions as well. So I hope that this presentation today can give you some ideas of how to start building those early transfer partnerships. All right, so pre-transfer, these are kind of some things that we wanted to chat about with what we do early on in the transfer process for students. So maybe before they're even thinking about the transfer process. And really when we start is during that student's first semester at their community college. So this is actually, Danielle probably knows this about me too. This is really one of my favorite parts of my job as a transfer admissions counselor. I love, we work with our local community college, which is Hawkeye. It's about 15-20 minutes away from UNI's campus. And we talk to their college experience classes. We are invited there as an unbiased guest speaker. So we are, of course, we are from UNI, but during our college experience presentation, we are really just the transfer voice to talk about the transfer transition for students to start thinking during that first semester about what their next steps are. Because as we all know, since a lot of you are already in that transfer work, you know, the earlier that you can connect and the earlier you can start thinking about the process to transferring, the more success that your students are going to have with taking the right classes and maximizing their scholarships. So this presentation that we do are, it's really about the tips and tricks of the transfer process. So things to start thinking about when it's talking about transfer credits. I remember when I was a community college student and I was in that transfer process, I actually had no idea what degree I was earning from the community college during my time. And so some of those things that we assume that students know, but maybe aren't sure about. So it's some of those knowledge, some of those languages that we know as transfer advisors or transfer recruiters that maybe students, we don't realize that they maybe don't know yet. So, so we talk about the different degrees that you can earn at a community college, and so that students are aware to start having those conversations with their advisor. And again, hearing it from another outlet rather than just talking to their community college advisor, it's another voice saying, hey, you should meet with your community college advisor. And so also during this presentation, we talk about degrees, we talk about different credits, we talk about different programs that maybe you should start taking some major classes during your time at your community college to stay on track. So really this presentation is to supplement the great community college advising that we already have at the different local community colleges, but supplement to add another voice with that transfer process. Danielle, did you have anything to add about the college experience?
Yeah, I will add that when we first started this process, I think it was really important that we made sure to leave that we were from UNI out of the presentation. We really wanted students to know that if they have any questions about the transfer process, whether they're looking at us or another school, that this information is going to pertain to them. And I think that's what really was the main selling point of doing these college experience courses. Whether you're looking at us or another school, we wanted them to plan as soon as possible. They are required at Hawkeye to meet with their advisors that very first semester as part of this class. And I think that has helped. In the presentation, we even list, okay, here are the things to ask. here are the things to do now. Here are the things you have to do later. When do you start that process? And what we saw, it was interesting, 2 years after we started doing these, we did see that Hawkeye Community College students started the application process earlier. It got us really excited for a bit because we thought, oh, our numbers are going way up. No, it was earlier, right? Which is good because that's exactly what we want. We want them to start that process earlier so they don't miss out on scholarships. So we can communicate, different classes to take that very last semester. So it worked out really well and the students really were listening. So we said it must be working because if they actually listen to us, that's a win. I even had a student ask if I would help them apply to a different college. And he did come into the office hours when I was there after the class to apply for another college. So the main message was, we are here to help them as a transfer expert. We just want to make sure that they get to that point where they do start applying to schools and take that next step, because we all know how important it is for these students to continue on and get a bachelor's degree, but sometimes that's scary and it's stressful. So that's what this whole program is about. So yes, I know that was a long-winded added comment, Olivia, but it really did prove to be very successful. And yeah, I think just as a transfer expert, as many of us are, right, we were able to talk and make those recommendations and suggestions. Even if the advisors also share those same things, hearing it from another outside person really benefited.
Yeah, and also why I believe that the college experience courses have brought a lot of success is that us visiting as the Transfer 101 session that we call it, it's built into their college experience class curriculum. So there's a week that we visit all the college experience courses. And then like Danielle said, the community college requires of that class that you complete a plan with your advisor. And so that they really piggyback off each other, because during the presentation, we talk about how it's important to work with your advisor. And we talk about the importance of earning that associate's degree. And so how you can earn that associate's degree and still stay on track for your next institution by taking courses for your major and kind of get a head start with working on your major courses while you're at the community college. So that's really what has been so successful for the transfer process, but also really it's to help the students at the end of the day. It's really putting their best interest at the forefront. And so also what's been successful too, like Danielle mentioned, being that unbiased transfer voice. And yeah, I start off every presentation saying, I'm here from the University of Northern Iowa, but I'm not here to sell you on UNI today. I'm here to sell you on that transfer experience so that I can share with them that unbiased voice. Of course, what we have is UNI examples because that's what we're familiar with. And I'll show you some of those tools that we talk about. So here are some of the tools that we have at our institution that help with students kind of getting that early transfer information. But it's also not just for the students, it also has really helped the advisors at the community college too. So the first tool, which here's actually the link to our tools website. So the first tool that I would say is our #1 tool that we use on our website, which also our community college partners love this tool that we have as well. So our transfer plans, it's a website where students can select their major, select their community college, and view the recommended courses. So here's actually a screenshot of an example. So I plugged in that I was a accounting student from DMAC, which is Des Moines Area Community College. And it shows how we recommend to complete that Associate of Arts degree. So some majors we might recommend an Associate of Science degree. So this helps them figure out what major or what degree we recommend. And then it shows a list of courses we recommend that they complete during their time of their associate's degree. So this is really helpful for our students, but also, like I mentioned, for the advisors. So I know the Hawkeye advisors, they love this tool because when they're helping those students build those plans, if they know, yep, I'm coming to UNI, they use this plan to help factor in how much time they'd have remaining at the community college. One thing to note with this, since I know we have a lot of Illinois schools joining us, so currently our transfer plans are actually built for Iowa colleges because we review their catalogs every single year. So for our out-of-state students, we actually have a link that when they go to the website and they plug in their major and they see that their college isn't listed, if they plug in their name and their major and then it cut off, but there's some other questions about their email, then we will send them an email and get them connected with some courses that we would recommend to take during their associate's degree. So we kind of make those plans as they come in then for the students. So this has been really our #1 tool as well for students that are planning that transfer process. We also have quite a few conversations too. I know some people are from the K-12 system. We have some students that reach out, they're seniors in high school and they know for sure that they're starting off at community college. We help get them connected with the right tools because I think there's this connotation sometimes that students think, I'm just going to community college to get the gen eds out of the way. And really, that's not always in the best interest of the student, especially if they're in a major that has very sequential classes. So, so this is a helpful tool to get on that sequence early. All right, another helpful tool that we have that's open for all students as well is our Transfer Connection program. So our advisors at Hawkeye, which is the community college that's right in our next door, but also all across the state and all across the US, definitely use this. So you can plug in this, the student will just fill out a quick form that plugs in their major, what term they plan on starting, and it helps get connected with one of us. So either myself, Danielle, or John, that's from our office. He's not in here today, but it connects them with us and we talk with them about what majors they might be thinking about. And then we help get them connected to an appropriate advisor at UNI within their plan of study. So if I have somebody that's thinking about maybe they want to do, their dream is to do special education. And so I will connect them with Kyle, who's an advisor in education, who can help talk with them about our special education endorsement, other endorsements as well, that they can complete during their time at UNI. So this is a really helpful tool as well to get those students connected early into that transfer process. Also, when they join this, they stay in the loop about the transfer process. So it helps them to get reminders about, hey, our application for next year is now open. Our scholarship deadline is approaching. So this is a great way for them just to stay in the loop with their transfer. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle now for when students are mid-transfer.
Yes, so joint advising. This is something that piggybacking off of the college experience courses, what we noticed is that these students did want to connect with us. They want help every step of the way, right? And we want to make sure that they do complete that associate's degree and take those prereqs towards whatever bachelor's degree that they're choosing. We want to help them every step of the way. And what we've really enjoyed was setting up Calendlys. If you don't use Calendly, you should look into it. It's amazing. It is our favorite tool that COVID pushed us into a bit more. We really like setting up joint advising with the student and their community college advisor, all three of us meeting at the same time to discuss their plan, why it's in their best interest to complete that AA degree oftentimes, or the AS degree, and then what we would recommend. These students like reassurance. They want to make sure that the plan that their community college advisor is giving them is also the one that we recommend and so forth. So these sessions have worked really, really well because obviously it's the student's best interest that we are all looking out for when we meet with Hawkeye is probably the one that we do these the most with. Our College of Business, they do this often. So they will meet with students often in a dual advising appointment, joint advising appointment, just to discuss different majors. And if you're looking at this major, is there one or two courses different that maybe we'd recommend? Or is there a minor that we'd recommend? When we're meeting with students, we always say, go on visits, right? I always tell students, go on 2, right? Which might be different than what most people would expect. But I say, no, if you're looking at schools, go to at least 2. And if you haven't gone when you're a transfer student, go again. I guess that's kind of taking us off the joint advising. But the point to that is what students are looking for when they're in high school visiting colleges is different than what they're looking for when they're a transfer student looking at colleges. I swore I wanted like 500 student classes to be lost in the shuffle. I would have failed. I would have had to drop out if I was in 500 student classes, and because I need somebody to keep me on track and point me out and call me out and make me talk in class. Believe it or not, I was very shy in class. So what I thought I wanted in a school actually really wasn't what was in my best interest. So I always recommend visiting, and then talking with those advisors, getting that information. Office hours has allowed us to meet with more students. I think the more we're on those campuses, the better, right? The more they see us, the better. We want to build those relationships for 2 whole years while they're at that community college. We don't want them to miss deadlines. We don't want them to take a class that maybe they didn't need. So the more we can talk with them, the better. And then simplifying the process. Just that next slide, Olivia. Our AA and actually our AS degree now too satisfies all of our gen eds. So if a student has an associative arts degree or an associative science, it satisfies all of our general education requirements for all of our majors. So they don't have any gen eds remaining. So we've kept it very easy to understand for students, right? And it's also easier to understand for the community college advisors that they don't have to think, okay, well, this major, they still have to take this gen ed, or this major, they need another. It's very simplified. So all the above, the students and the advisors all know exactly what they're getting themselves into with those degrees. Olivia, do you have anything to add about simplifying the process?
I would just say that I think to simplify the process too for transfer students, the earlier that we can make that connection. And yeah, those joint advising sessions I love so that that students are reassured, they hear it from both their community college and their transfer school about what they should be doing, so that they know that they're getting unbiased information that's going to be what's best for the student.
Yeah, I think a lot of times students are surprised that we say, no, it is in your best interest to get that AA, because then it will come in as that nice, pretty package to satisfy all of your gen eds. And I think that's also why the community colleges ask us there, especially during their registration time. They like to have us just in their office. I think during registration time, that very first week, obviously walk-ins are very busy. They have a lot of students coming in to help them with registration. So us just being there to answer all the other random questions like, well, when do I start the process? How do I even schedule a visit to a school? Do I need to apply now if I'm going in a semester? So they ask us there to help. And I think that helps them, but it also lets us get in front of those students as soon as possible in the process. And exploring majors. Yes.
And Olivia, just because this is pertinent to before you move off the topic, I see in the chat box that someone referred to a recent slide. They said that you talked about your AS satisfying gen eds, but your slide only refers to the AA. So the question was, does it also satisfy AS gen eds?
Yes, so that's actually brand new that the AS satisfies it. So that's probably why it didn't even make it on the slide yet. It's like a week old. But yes, the AA and the AS degree will satisfy our gen eds. I'm glad you pointed that out.
We got some sharp people out there watching everything.
Yes, I love that. I love that. No, that's great.
Yes, I actually did not. I didn't add it into the slide because I didn't know if I could yet because it's such new news. So thanks, Danielle, for sharing.
Oh, yes, we can share it with the world now. Yeah, it's exciting. That's a recent change since we changed our general education requirements. It's more focused on learning outcomes now, so not direct course to course. It doesn't have to match up perfectly. We're looking at the learning outcomes to say, what is the student in these general education, what do we really want them to take away? So it makes the transfer credit, it makes transfer credits a lot easier to accept into very specific categories. So it's exciting, but it's very new.
All right, so now as students are transitioning to UNI, like I mentioned earlier, a third of our incoming students are transfer students. So we really do love transfers on our campus, which I think helps with that seamless transition from the community college to UNI. And so I think it's really important. We do have a transfer specific orientation for students. So it definitely looks a little bit different than what our first year student orientation looks like. During our orientation, they actually meet one-on-one with an advisor to help register for their classes and get them started. Also, we have a transfer specific welcome. So I know most institutions have some kind of welcome week or before classes kick off to help get students acquainted. Transfer students don't want to feel lumped in as a freshman to those activities. So we do separate transfer student sessions. One of my favorites is Transfer 101, that we talk through all the things that you might not hear during orientation, but you want to know as a new student to the community. So we talk through that it's quesadilla day on Fridays in the Mocker Union, or how to print in the library, some of those, a mixture of fun and academic based topics. So transfer students really love those transfer specific welcome sessions. Also, we found success at our institution. We have transfer specific housing. So students can opt into this housing. Students don't have to live in the transfer communities on campus, but we have heard from a lot of students they really love living in the transfer communities that we have. It really helps establish community, and it's a way for students to live on campus with other new students that aren't new to college but are new to UNI and make those connections right off the bat. Also, we just implemented a transfer center on our campus, which is actually run through our admissions office. And so the transfer center is a great way for students that are visiting campus to pop in and get some information. We have some of our local students that stop in and they need help with the application or whatnot, and we're on standby to help them. But also it's really helpful during those first few weeks of class when students get to campus and they might not know exactly who they need to go to. And so they feel comfortable coming into the transfer center and saying, you know, I just transferred here. I'm not sure what office I need to go to. Can you help me point me in the right direction? And so we love having that space too as a go-to for students. Also within the transfer center, like Danielle mentioned, we have TAG, which is our transfer student organization, which is kind of housed in the transfer center too. And so this is a great way for students to get connected. They help with a lot of the Panther welcome activities and social events throughout the school year to help make those connections. And then we also have PACE for students that are were in their TRIO program at their community college. PACE is a TRIO kind of like program that we have on campus for students to have that extra support on campus too. So students have really enjoyed being a part of PACE as well. So I kind of already touched on this, but the Panther welcome, I think that's just really important to have transfer specific sessions for students to get an affinity with other transfer students when they're on campus. And also we have Jumpstart as well, which is a program for students from minoritized populations to get connected with UNI early as well and move in early to campus. So there's just a lot of support that's out there for our transfer students, which is really important to ensuring the success for our students. Also, I just wanted to include, since I'm talking about some of our services, there are a lot of other supports that are here on campus. And I think that that's one of the main points when making those early partnerships is important, because it's really overwhelming for students when they first get to campus with all the different resources. And so the earlier that we can make those introductions to students to some of these different resources, then the the easier transition it is. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Kyle now to talk a little bit about transfer support once students are on campus.
So a big thing that, you see a couple people from admissions here and you see myself here from advising. One thing that's really important to us is that the entire transfer process from the beginning till the time they get on campus isn't just one person's responsibility or one area's responsibility. It really is a team effort. And Olivia and Danielle are on my team just as much as I am on their team. I can't possibly know everything about transfer admissions and transfer requirements as they do, and they can't possibly know all the things about, within the College of Education, specifically all the licensure requirements for teaching and like all of that stuff. Like, I don't expect them to know those things. So if we're going to support students from an advising perspective, it's really important that we work together on that. So it is definitely a team effort that starts all the way at the very beginning, all the way up until the students get to campus here, and then we're working with them. And those partnerships for us extend all the way back to when those students are at their community college and wanting to, come to UNI or potentially interested in coming to UNI, because, as you all know, like the progression of those long-term plans for students are really impacted by what they take their first year and their second year. So for us, building the partnerships early with community colleges in those first years and second years that the students are there are really essential to help students be successful when they get to campus. Obviously, if students change their mind, they, common one we get all the time is students are like, hey, I wanted to be a nurse. I went into nursing and then I realized I don't like blood. And teaching is helping people, so I'm going to be a teacher, like still helping them navigate, like, okay, you've totally changed your mind about what you wanted to do. Maybe all your science courses aren't going to be applicable quite the way we thought they were, but here's some other ways that we can apply them. And we wouldn't expect our community college partners to know all of those things when it comes to, down the line, teacher licensure, all of that good stuff. So for us, it's really about building those connections early so we have them the entire way through. And like I said, building kind of off those partnerships, we want to support our community college partners as much as we can. Like, obviously, as a four-year institution, we would love for students to come to UNI and start here their first year, and that'd be a great experience. But we recognize that's not the right fit for everyone. Not everyone wants to do that right away. There might be a ton of really, really great reasons to start at a community college. So we want to support the goals of that community college and support the completion of their AA degrees and their AS degrees kind of prior to that transfer. So like partnering with them, understanding what their programs are, being a resource so that they know that they can reach out to us is something that's really, really important. And again, kind of talking about that every step of the way. We want to be and we work to be within students or at the community colleges as early as they want us to be. And really focusing on, okay, how can we develop this relationship? How can we work with this specific student? And it is a lot of extra, to be honest, it's a lot of work as an advisor who has my own caseload of current UNI students and things, but I recognize the benefit for student success. I recognize the benefit for our campus partners and making sure that students are able to have a good experience when they transfer and that they feel good about their experience that they had at their, at their community college and, feel good about that transition then to UNI. So, the advising support isn't just about when they get to campus here. It really is being open to working with students kind of all along the way. Recently, I was doing a visit with a student who is coming to campus and they're looking at starting in the fall. And I sat down with them and was making a plan for them of what their coursework would look like when they get here and kind of what their remaining courses would be and how quickly they could get done. And, the student is really upset. The parent especially were really upset. They're like, oh, we don't feel that their, advisor at their community college knew it all what they were doing. And the student had taken every single course I possibly could have hoped they had taken. Like their advisor did a great job. The student did a great job. And I was like, I was kind of joking a little bit with the parent. I was like, man, I hope when I do a bad job, it's this good, because this community college advisor had crushed it and like really just trying to like show that we have their backs, like that, we're there to support them all along the way and that they're really important partners to us. So, we do know that especially with transfer students, knowing kind of what's remaining for them is critical. They want to know how much time they have left, how long is it going to take them to do things. So we do treat them a little bit different than our new from high school students. Once orientation is done, we're doing long-term plans even before the semester starts with them. We're sitting down and figuring out exactly what courses they have left, what do they need to do to accomplish both their personal goals and their academic goals, and really focused on like tailoring their what our services are to the needs that they have. Olivia, if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. And like I said, this is all really based in student success. And to kind of go back all the way to the beginning of the presentation, when they were talking about the SDV 108 or the student success presentations that they do, I actually taught those classes at the community college I worked at. So Danielle and Olivia would come into my class and do the presentation that they talked about. And I can honestly say from the perspective of someone who at the time worked at the community college, I had no real affiliation to UNI in any way, shape, or form. They really did come in and just talk about being that transfer resource and caring and showing that like, hey, we want you to at least start putting a plan in place of like what those next step goals are. So it was really nice as a community college advisor who also taught this class to have someone from a four-year institution come in and reiterate the exact same things I had been telling my students, but then sometimes just getting that support of like, yeah, look, like Kyle kind of knows what they're talking about. And we do that even with, we do that with high school students as well. Like we go all the way back to working with, talking with and going to high school classrooms and talking with them. And any of the, in our state, we do have a lot of programs that are based around like becoming a teacher and going and working with those programs. So we're willing to do that kind of as far as back as folks want us or are willing to let us come in and talk to students. But as they mentioned, a third of our students are transfer students. So our focus in working with transfer students is everything is custom for them. They're never lumped in with our new from high school students. Any workshops we do, any transition program we do, any information we sent out, there's always specific tailored information to transfer students. They're never just lumped in with, well, like you're new here, so you must need to know this. And really a big bridge with that is, transfer students know a ton about college. So we need to build the bridge from what they currently know to how things work here. The ideas that they need to know and the things that happen are pretty similar. They just need to know how we do it at UNI. So a big thing for us is really focusing on what that experience is like, knowing that a third of our students are transfer students, knowing that I was a transfer student. That's kind of a huge focus for us. And really the end is all about student success. We hear all the time in working in higher education, the idea of student success being a focus. But for us, that is genuinely true. We sit in advising network meetings as a group and talk about, okay, like how is this going to work for our students? How is it going to lead to their success? Is this specifically, what's the impact going to be on transfer students and our community college partners? The new general education that's been talked about. We have very specific conversations about, how does this impact when we encourage students to transfer, and how does this impact how we talk about the completion of AA degrees and AS degrees, because we still want students to complete, like that's important. So making sure we're taking those needs into consideration along with the student success needs, and kind of balancing all of that well. So for us, it's all kind of, like I said, part and parcel of everything that we do. It's not this in addition, it's not this separate. Working with student recruitment, working with transfer students, is just ingrained in our job. And that takes some partnerships, right? That takes some time to build those relationships. But for us, it's not this in addition, it's not this thing that admissions needs to do. We need to be part of it, both for the success of the program, but also just for the success of the student. So.
Yeah, I'll actually piggyback on that. I think we bug Kyle almost every day. He expects it. But I will answer the question in the chat as well. When you talk with high school students, do you advise them primarily about entering UNI as a freshman, or do you also talk about the transfer path to UNI? So if I have a high school student that is comparing if they should start at UNI or if they should start out at a community college, I actually have more questions than that for them, right? I want to say, are they planning to live on campus at the community college versus here? Did they take the ACT? It's not required here to have the ACT, but I always ask them, what's that score? What was your high school GPA? So then I know what scholarships they could be eligible for as an incoming freshman, as an incoming first year student. Sometimes that is higher, right? Our freshman scholarships, if you come here right away, sometimes those scholarships are higher. We are very lucky here though at UNI to have really good transfer scholarships, whether it's PTK, if they're in TRIO. For out-of-state students, it's $5,000 off tuition automatically just by being admitted. So we're really lucky to have those. Yes, we are considered test optional, but some currently with the model, some scholarships we have one formula to if you do have an ACT and one if you do not have an ACT. So based off that information, it really just depends on the student. In the state of Iowa, a lot of students have a lot of community college credit. Some students want to live at home for an extra year. So that really depends on, is it in their best interest for cost? So I would never tell a student which way to go. I always say, what are you looking for in a school? And then we'll support you either way, whether you look at coming in as a transfer student or whether you come in as a high school student.
Yeah, I think we tried really hard to like lay out the options for students and lay out the different paths to show, like, if you came here as a freshman, this is what this would look like. If you came here as a transfer student, this is what it would look like. And yeah, we would support you either way through the process. But also in the state of Iowa too, I don't know how exactly it compares to Illinois, but I know in Iowa, we have a lot of students that are completing their associate's degrees in high school, or have like 50 credits coming from high school. And so for some students, they might not really have many more classes to take at the community college. So for some students, we try to, catch them if they're in maybe that boat, that maybe they just need to take a few more classes through the community college to finish that associate's degree and not be there for a full year or whatnot. So we try to lay out those different options for students. I also see in the chat, there's a question about with the college experience courses, if we have a document. So we don't have a handout, but that's a really great idea that we will have to be implementing for our next courses. But yeah, we don't have a handout. We do a slideshow. I would be happy to share that information with you. I'll actually drop in the chat our transfer email. If you send us an email, we can share that information to you to kind of show what we discussed during that presentation.
And I could just interject there really briefly, if I may. As someone who had taught the class, like, we had a timeline we shared with students. So they did have a general timeline that was part of that, part of the curriculum for that class. But I haven't taught in a few years, so that may have changed. But at the time, that's how it was structured.
All right, so I know we're kind of wrapping up with time, but I just want to pose this question to you all. What are you doing to build partnerships for early outreach, whether you're at the community college level or at the four-year institution level? What partnerships are you creating with that next step? Also, I see, okay, for transfer students exploring the transfer pathway and entering that degree information on the website, what platform is used?
Olivia, while you think about that one, there was also a question submitted much earlier on about when you build a plan for a student from an out-of-state college, whether that plan is retained. You might want to address, it's like up quite a bit higher in the chat box.
I guess, so the first question, the question from Tiffany, I guess I'm maybe not quite understanding that question. Maybe it's referring to our transfer plan of study, that if students are exploring that transfer path, they can plug in their major, plug in their college, and it shows you the list of courses. So it's not a platform we use, it's something that our IT had developed to create that UNI transfer plan of study. But also to kind of roll on to the other question as well, with our out-of-state, how we kind of build that out-of-state transfer plan. So if a student plugs in their information saying, hey, I'm an elementary education major and I'm transferring from the College of DuPage. So what I would do is I would look at the courses that are offered at College of DuPage and kind of see how those would transfer in to meet the UNI requirements. So I'd actually kind of refer to our UNI transfer plans of study that we have for maybe for Hawkeye Community College that's right nearby us, to see then how that would match up with that out-of-state school and then provide suggestions on those courses. So that's kind of how I would be checking into that information. So we pull the course descriptions, and sometimes we might need a syllabus from that class, so that we can see what courses would transfer over for the students.
And we're very unique at UNI, where our office is also the office that evaluates the credit. So I think that is great. So then we can actually give all that information to the students when we are looking at it, unless it's upper level credit.
So we have about 3 minutes max left. I don't see any other questions in the chat box. Does anyone have some last questions for our presenters?
If you think of any questions after the presentation too, I did drop our transfer email. Myself, Danielle, and also John in our office, who's not with us today, but he checks that email too. So if you have any other questions, you can always email us as well.
And I would also say just in the chat box, it's up closer to the top is the link that I talked about in the beginning for those of you who need professional development units from today's session. So feel free to get that. And with that, I'd like to really thank Olivia, Kyle, and Danielle for your wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was very informative. I like all the stuff you do for transfer students. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Have a wonderful day. And Illinois attendees, don't forget, we have breakout sessions coming next.